Morning, Lil. Morning, pussycat. Meow. Morning. 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 Oh, it's been a wild couple of days weather-wise. It has been really windy and really rainy, and actually one of the first things I'm going to have to do this morning is rescue the swing seat because it's come a cropper. One of the things that I want to get in today is some field beans. Field beans is my go-to, like green manure. I really rate it. It's like a miniature, an old version of a broad bean. So pretty much the plants look just like a broad bean, but the beans are much smaller. And last year I was having a bit of trouble getting hold of field beans from, a garden centre. Then they normally come in like a little packet like this. I couldn't find any, so I ordered them online, and I seem to have managed to order like about 3 kilos of them. So we are not short of a field bean. So I've got 2 beds I think I want to do today. I've got the top bed, which we actually haven't grown anything in all year. And I'm not really sure why that's happened. It's just kind of worked out that way. Nothing's been in there. So I'm going to pack it full of field beans. And then there's a couple of other bits and pieces. I think the one with the turnips in is going to have one. Anyway, that's the first bed that I'm going to do. It's just not precise. They need to be sown quite close together, and it's just a scatter and poke effect. That's the official term, by the way. Right, I am going to sort out that swing seat first though, because it's looking in a bit of a state. There you go, Chapo. That's a bit better. She's probably going to have to go away fairly soon. Be put away for the winter. It's gorgeous. What was next? Field beans. I've actually got this huge Winter Savory in the end of this bed, which is a great herb, but I didn't chop it back last year, and it's got really, really leggy, and you're supposed to give it a trim in early spring, but it's just taking up so much space, and there's loads of new growth at the bottom. So I think I'm going to risk it. I want to take some cuttings of it too, but I'm just going to risk it and chop a load of this off because it's blocking the entrance and it's taking up most of this bed. So I'm going to start with that. This is actually really easy to take cuttings from, and these bits here where there hasn't been any flower on the end is absolutely perfect. So I might just nip a couple of those off to begin with so I know where I'm taking my cuttings from. Some over here too, and then I know what I'm doing and I can just chop the rest of it back. You aren't supposed, like I say, you're not supposed to chop it back now, but every year I seem to chop it back at the wrong time and it comes back great every year, so I'm not worried. As long as I don't go below where the new growth is, it should be fine. Underrated herb, this. It's particularly good if you grow a lot of beans and are, should we say, affected by them. Because if you're cooking up beans and you put some of this Winter Savory in, it limits the gaseous effects, I think is the best way to phrase it. Yeah, so each of these stems, I'm not going below a point where I can see fresh green growth. And then we should have a nice flush. And I think we've got a little bit of cold weather coming up, but it's not going to be, you know, horrific just yet. It is only the start of October. Actually, these bits that I've just pulled out from this side have made it super easy for me to take cuttings off because they've rooted themselves, which is rather nice. There's a couple of other bits that I can see that have rooted, and I'll pick them up. I'll go and just chop these up and pot them so they don't get too dry. Not that anything is going to get too dry today because everything's damp, but I don't want them to suffer. So I'll go just pot these up, and then I'll come back and field bean. Right, secateurs, yes. So what have we actually got in here? Who's got roots? You've got roots. You've got roots. And some nice growth. This may not look like it's got a great deal on it, but actually I don't know if you can see that with my hand. It's got like a whole load of little sprigs. So I'm going to stick that one in the corner. Now, who's this? This one's the same. We don't need all of this extra on either side. We just want enough that it can get going. So this has got 1, 2, 3, 4 like little shoots on it. Just bury it up to the same point that it was in the soil. So almost like the stick's just laying on the ground, but all that root is underneath. Sorry about the sniffing. It's always lovely, isn't it? This one, is that root attached to anything? No. But that bit is. Okay. I know I mentioned the gaseous benefits of these, this little herb earlier, but she's quite an interesting one. It took us a long time to discover what it was because we actually got ours from a cutting, and it's formed a beautiful hedge just like up the allotment way. So we had a cutting from that, not really knowing what it was, and it's just really nice. It tastes really, really peppery. It's a really strong flavour, and the smell, it almost smells like a mixture of black pepper, thyme, and like an oregano-y kind of smell and taste. It's absolutely delicious. And you used to find it a lot more often than you do now, Winter Savory. Used to be a bit of a French classic. You can get summer savoury as well, but that is an annual, not a perennial like this. Now, is there any more root on there that we can see that's attached? Oh, excuse me. This cold will not go away. It's the same one I had all those weeks ago. Just keeps moving around. Okay, so they are all the bits that have already got the roots in. And then there's a couple of really nice bits of new fresh growth in here that I'm just going to plonk in. And it does take cuttings really easily, so I'm thinking it might just go. I'll put that in there like that. And there's another bit that's just freshly growing there. That's a good one. So where all of the bits of growth are sticking up, I'm just going to lay, you can see it, actually it has already just started in there. I'm just going to lay that on the surface and just bury it in enough, but leaving all of that on top. And that should give us a whole load of cuttings. Some of these are going to George. And some of these is we're planning for winter jobs at the moment. And one of the big things we need to do is work on the chicken cage, which is going to be just shifted in position slightly. Which is going to make it easier for us to use as a chicken house, but also because we can't take the chickens anywhere while we're actually doing the work, it'll just make it easier to be able to do it without, like in one day, you know, rather than having to deconstruct the whole thing and then reconstruct. We're going to do a bit of a halfway, but it means shunting it slightly, but it's going to leave us with a big patch at the front, which is going to be the new herb bed. And so some of these will probably go in there. But yeah, like I said, I'll actually show you, before I leave, I'll walk up there and show you what this looks like as like a little hedge at the front of the allotment, because it's gorgeous. Actually, that is a healthy look. I can't leave that. Right, let's take that. Look how healthy that is. Nip the tops off all of these. And stick that in there too. Okay, cool. I wonder, I might just do a little test. Sorry, I know I've done as many as I need, but I hate it when you've got all this lovely foliage and then you just got to be like, oh no, I'm not doing any more. So let's take that up to the softwood area, rip some leaves off and see if we can get that to root too. Lovely, that'll do. Go give these a water. And I don't think I will stick them in the greenhouse actually, because it might be a bit hot for them. So I'll just give them a water and leave them on the side outside. God, everything is looking such a mess around here. I'm gonna have to do some serious clearing, I think. Oh, we got some sunshine. That's nice. Yeah, huge black clouds rolling towards us, but at the moment it's nice. What did I need? I need a trowel because there's a couple of little verbenas in that top bed. I'm going to shunt to the end. Yeah, we've got a couple of savable things in here actually. We've got a nice verbena just here, and we've actually got another patch of verbena up that side, so I will transfer that little chap over. There's lots of Californian poppies and things, but to be honest, we've got so much self-seeded Californian poppy like across the whole allotment, it's not much point saving it. This is a Lychnis. We also have an awful lot of Lychnis, so probably not worth saving. Oh, and there was a couple of other bits of savoury in here, wasn't there? I might just go and bung that in the side and see if we can get one growing, you know, just straight up. There's another bit there, look at that. Oh, I missed loads of it. We don't really know what we're going to do with this poor tree. So it's just completely gone though, unfortunately. We are apricotless now, but the nerines are looking gorgeous. And it's such a good shaped tree. It's a really great structure. Like I said the other week, I think I'm going to try and keep the structure and use it to grow something up. Because it's a great shape. Such a shame. I can't tell you how upset I am that it's gone. And this end is where we've got the other verbena, so I will plonk that other bit just in here. Okay, and the rest of this just needs a bit of a hoe. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why we didn't use this bed this year. I mean, this is our shadiest bed, but still, last year we had great success with really early peas in here. And what else did we do? We've had good pak choi in here. Yeah, I've got no explanation for why we didn't use it. It just never came up. Normally these hoes are just used for like surface skimming, so at that angle, so you're just like cutting the tops of the plants off over the roots. But because of the way I'm going to plant these field beans, which is the old scatter and poke, you need to have kind of loosened up the top couple of inches of the soil, just to make it a bit easier so you don't break your fingers while you're... Why is there a brick in this bed? Who knows? Okay, that will do. I have a whole video on the joys of field beans that I will link underneath in the notes for this video. There's no point me talking about them again, even though I could wax lyrical about the joys of field beans. As you can see, I'm not being precious about planting them. And they're roughly, like if there's any big clumps, I want them to be at least a few inches apart. But really, you know, I'm just scattering them. I'm also going to put, I don't normally wear gloves, but I'm going to put gloves on to do this poking bit, because as you're poking down like that, it's not only that you get dirty fingernails, which is something that, you know, obviously I'm quite used to, but because you're pushing down, you like wedge the soil so far up under your fingernail that your fingernails end up like this, and then quite difficult to get out. So that was the scatter. Now we're on to poke. This might actually be a two-gloved poking situation. Are you ready? Oh yeah, speedy. This is actually a technique that I started using for peas when I was direct sowing peas. It works really well for these really big, robust seeds. Obviously, you couldn't do this with something that was more delicate, but for these kind of seeds that you want to sow direct but en masse, with these, it's a good option to over sow as well, particularly when you're sowing at this time of year or early spring, because there's not a great deal out there for rats and mice and things to eat, and so they will go for them. So you could sow them and then cover them up, or you could just wildly over sow, like somebody who rather foolishly bought 2.5 kilos of field bean seeds. There we go. Beans in. Well, funnily enough, I know I just said that chopping back that winter savoury, you shouldn't really do it when you're going to have cold weather, but it's... Winnie's having a temper tantrum. She's trying to get in and lay an egg, but Mum's in the middle of cleaning out the house. So, you know, fight ensues. What was I saying? Yeah, I just said that you shouldn't really cut the winter savoury back when it's really cold. But it's the early October and we should be fine. There's no cold weather due. Well, Mum has just informed me that it's supposed to be getting down to 2 tomorrow night. Now that's pretty cold. But what I don't have is any more Velcro to fix the windows for the polytunnel, which have just been open all summer. Not open, they've got EnviroMesh over them, but they're not like sealed properly. And I think 2 is just going to be a little bit too cold. So what we're going to do is just bubble wrap the windows. Yeah, I'm just going to bubble wrap the windows, just staple them. And then I will order some more Velcro when I get home, so we'll be able to put proper windows on. I really want, there's a load of stuff actually in the greenhouse that I want to plant into the polytunnel, but I don't know whether I should wait until after we have the cold dip, because it's going to get warm again straight after that. It's just one like little plummet night and then we go back up to like 7 or 8 at night. And I think if I plant those out and then we have the dip, it might be a problem. So I might have to wait until Thursday to do that. You're getting treats, girlies. Yeah, so bubble wrap windows, and I will leave the planting out until after this.
You might have some already smaller cut here.
That's a roll.
Oh, okay.
I think a lot of the stuff that we had in the poly that we were saving was shredded.
Yes.
So we got rid.
Okay.
I think this is, we'll just start again fresh with this. Of course it's not quite the right size. Of course. That is my garlic kale, girls. Bugger off. Go on. You've got all your favourites on that side. Leave my garlic kale alone, silly sausage. Go on, off you go. Leave it alone. This is the thing, when I use something, I've got to put it back in the right place rather than just jam it back in the door. Right, let's get this actually in position. Netting tucked on the top. Huzzah, it's like it never happened. I'm so excited. So, back in the kitchen, you know this has been a very long running drama. For anybody who hasn't been here through the whole palaver, 26 months ago, I was at the stove and I stepped backwards and my foot went through the kitchen floor. Just huge dip and a collapse, and my foot went straight through it. So that was 26 months ago, and it's taken us that long because it was an insurance claim, because it turned out that we had a leak under the floor. We had a lot of layers of floor. That was part of the problem. So the leak wasn't detected because we had the original floorboards. Then we had parquet flooring. Then we had large tiles, and then we had small tiles. So altogether it was holding itself in place, and it just rotted from the bottom up until all that was left was the 2 layers of tiles just balancing on each other. And then that's what I put my foot through. So insurance claim, 26 months ago. So that would have been about September, no, 25 months ago. Yeah, about September, 2 years ago, however long that ago is. And I was saying, oh, I really hope they have the kitchen back in place for Christmas. How naive was I? We're now 2 years later, and one of the very final stages actually happened this week. So a couple of weeks ago, it would have been probably about a month and a half ago, actually. Time flies when you've been waiting this long already. I had said, oh, you know, kitchen floor's finished. We're just about in. We've got a sink again. We can use the oven. But we have been waiting because part of the thing was that they had to repaint some stuff because we had cupboards replaced and then they're all mismatched. So we haven't actually been able to put all of our stuff back into the kitchen, waiting for this, thinking that it was imminent. And then it just never happened. But it has finally happened. We have been repainted, so we are back to actually being able to put stuff into the kitchen again. The only thing that still needs to be done is that, slightly irritatingly, the taps are plumbed in the wrong way round. So the hot's on the cold and the cold's on the hot. The actual tap itself is really loose. So sometimes when you're using it, the spout comes off and the water just sprays everywhere. Which I would fix myself. I mean, I have kept fixing it. But the thing is, because it's an insurance claim, you have to make sure all of these things are like listed and done by them. Because if you do something yourself in the middle of the claim, which is already listed by them, things get null and void and all that kind of stuff. So we're kind of a bit hamstringed at the moment of what we can do, even though there were things we could do. Like, we could have painted this ourselves, no worries. Because it's part of the claim, that's why it's taken so long. Anyway, yeah, so just the taps need to be swapped around, and we've got like a water filter thing on there which hasn't been hooked up because they couldn't find a clip for it. But yeah, so we're putting things back in today, but there's one thing that I do need to do myself, is that this is just not something part of the insurance or anything like that, but last time we had this painted, because that particular surface there gets a lot of wear, it's like where we have the breadboard and all that kind of stuff, the paint wore thin really quickly. And the same with the area where we store the plates, like the plate rack, because obviously you're scraping plates in and out all the time. The paint wore thin really, really fast and went straight back through to wood. So I'm just going to paint them with a clear paint protector varnish. But between coats, Mum and I are going to repopulate the cupboards and the shelves and put everything back where it's supposed to be. And we will be back to a functioning kitchen, like properly. So the kind of thing where when you're cooking something, you don't have to keep running into the sitting room and searching through stacked boxes, trying to find something that you need. It's actually going to be like in the drawers, and it's going to be a whole new world, a whole new world. I'm sure there's a song about that. Right, I'm going to do the first coat on the plate rack, and then Mum and I are going to be attacking that. This is the plate rack, as you see, as you're like sliding things in and out of here, all of this wore away. So I'm just going to varnish it up. I've actually done a bit of a tester on that side in case it was a weird colour and I'd bugged it all up. But luckily, not at all. It goes on opaque and then dries to like a satin finish, which is what the paint finish is anyway. So it's just going to take a couple of coats. Good evening, chaps. There's a right nip in the air, and tonight's the night that we're having that real dip in temperatures. So Mum and I are having a bit of an experiment. We have picked up some tea lights and brought a little terracotta pot up from home, and we're going to try making a little kind of makeshift heater. I've seen this done before with other people, but I've never tried it myself. So it's just a terracotta pot with a terracotta little tray to go underneath it, and a tea light. So the terracotta absorbs the heat from the tea light and kind of slow releases it back into the greenhouse, just keeping the chill off the air. And we've picked up some tea lights which have got a 10-hour burn, so they're slightly bigger than usual. And we will see if it just keeps the temperature slightly higher in here than it is outside, because I really want my chilies to survive. Just reset the thermometer so we know what we're doing. 3.1, I think it was. Well, preliminary testing. It got down to 3 here last night, and it didn't get below, what was the lowest? 6.5 in here, so that's pretty thumbs up for the thing. We'll give it another couple of test runs, but I think that was quite successful. Well, anything we did have ripen, there's been eaten.
Been eaten? Oh, bugger.
Well, that's annoying. Second, and I'll get back to what's most annoying, but the other thing is to say I apologise. Sorry about the wobble. I apologise about the possibly terrible sound quality today. When I was doing the bit in the kitchen yesterday, I've magically managed to lose my microphone somewhere in the kitchen, and we put so much stuff like back in. Obviously I just showed us putting the stuff on the, like, what is that called, like a Welsh dresser type thing, but I appear to have somehow packed my microphone away with everything else, so I'm not really sure where that is. So the sound quality, I apologise. There might be quite a bit of voiceover in this segment, but the big thing is we just come in here obviously to see what's what. I've got loads of stuff to plant in here, so I was going to just see if we've got any more tomatoes, and the rats have been back. Obviously they haven't come up through the floor because I've meshed the whole bottom. They've tried digging down through, but they've obviously met, you know, the mesh at the other side and haven't been able to get through that. But they've come in through the door, they've chewed a hole in the door. So I feel a bit depressed about that, actually, chaps. Let me show you the damage that they have done. So just here we had a ripe, beautiful, big, fat, ripe Black Beauty in there, which has been chewed off completely. The rest of these sort of look all right. That one's had a bit of a bite out of it. Cucumbers had a bite out of it, but I think the rest of it should be all right. We'll just chop that bit off. The oddly shaped black Japanese black truffelli that I was saying was so nearly ripe have been ripped to shreds. Most other things, you can see there's one on the ground over there. They've just pulled them off and they haven't even been ripe. You see there's been a lot of digging in that back corner there. They have come in the door and then tried to dig back down through, and it hasn't worked. It doesn't mean that they haven't caused a load of destruction. So what am I going to do? I am going to pick everything that looks like it's got a chance of ripening at home, that is below sort of this sort of height. there's quite a few big ones which are just starting to turn red and they're in the danger zone. So I'm going to take them. Now the problem with this is that when you take them when they're green, you put them all in a thing and then you don't know what variety is what. So I'm going to put them in individual labelled bags and try and ripen them at home, but try and keep them so that I know what's what, because that's where the problems come in terms of then deciding excuse me, then deciding what we're going to grow and what we're not going to grow next year is when you just have a whole jumble and you don't know what they are. So there's some black beauties to take home with us that haven't been chewed. Quite a lot, quite a lot of black strawberries, garnet. There's a couple of like full trusses of garnet that I'm going to take and hope that they ripen up. Black moon, a load of those are just starting to turn, so they should be okay. Yeah, actually there's probably fruit on every single plant that I'm going to take home with me today, and just cross my fingers. Anything that's immature, as in for example that Rebel Starfighter Prime that I took home green and that it's ripened up, like this one's starting to come good, you can see it's just going, so I'll take that home today. But that was about the size of the totally green one that I took home and it's ripened beautifully. There was another one on the same bit that was this sort of size and it's just shriveled and not going to do anything, and that's just because it wasn't mature enough. So like this one I could take home, but these ones I don't think would do anything. Decisions to be made over the Sart relays. Look at these three, they are just beautiful. I might take one of the three home and see if I can get it to ripen and leave the other two. It's just like hedging my bets. Two beautiful big black crims are going to come home with me today, and then actually that plant is finished. That's all that was on there, because as you can see, you see that destruction at the bottom there, that was the only other big tomato that was on that plant, so I can probably take that one out. There is another Japanese black Truffelli at the top here that I will rescue and take home. At the back here, who's this? Oh, that's the mortgage lifter. Right, only one fruit on there, but it is just starting, so I reckon I can take that home and it will carry on. Okay, let's try and rescue this situation. I'm gonna go and get some paper bags. I am quietly optimistic that at least half of what's in those bags will ripen fully. The other half, who knows? Right, now I've got to clear some space. Some of those tomato plants I've stripped completely. There's nothing worth saving on them, so I'm going to take a couple of those out. I'm not going to pull them up by the root. I'm just going to snip them off because we've got all the basil and stuff growing underneath. Some of the basil's kind of had its day and is ready to come out, and then I've got trays of things that need to be planted in there. It's blooming warm in there as well. That ended up being slightly more of a haircut than I was planning. It is positively bald, but that little tray there is going to fill the space.
Yes.
It's a bit sparse.
But that's the only way they're going to ripen, isn't it? If they're going to.
So I have a bag ready to pick a load of basil, because obviously that many tomatoes, we're going to need some basil, because some of them were actually ripe, so we'll probably have them for lunch. But I'm just looking around and I'm going to give it a bit of a trim because it's got quite bushy, the basil. And then this is what's going in its place. So this is a mixture of the two types of mustard greens, the dragon's tongue and the green wave, that I always grow, make excellent winter greens. I have got some rocket in there that maybe needs a bit actually, look, the let me show you. The mustard, which is on either side there, has actually really rather crowded out my rocket. There's one mustard in the end of the rocket, but rather crowded out, so I might leave those for a bit and just let them recover. And the rest of these, what else do we have? We've got lamb's lettuce to go in here, and then there's some spinach. I also have a tray of very long suffering lucullus, which didn't go in the bed. I kept holding off because every time I planted it out, as you can see, I've like stripped half of this. It kept being dug up. But the rest of this I'm going to give a go in here. And that's the coriander that we sowed last week. So that's coming up nicely. That will also go in here eventually. But yes, I've probably got about 10 lucullus I can rescue from there. And then I'll dot the rest of this in and around. It's interesting actually. Oh, I've remembered I don't have the microphone on, so I don't know how clearly you can hear me. Not only that, I don't know where my secateurs are. There they are. I've got used to talking away from the camera and just accepting that you can hear me, so this might be voiced over. But yeah, actually surprisingly, the amount of basil that I planted in here, this is like the tiniest amount left because it was really badly slugged at the beginning. But what got past that first initial slugging has actually been really good this year. I've been really impressed. I think sometimes it does suffer a bit with the really hot weather, and the fact that we have certainly not had really hot weather has actually benefited it a bit. This is the lettuce leaf one. Well impressed with this. I will be growing this again, most definitely. But the Thai basil that likes a bit more heat has suffered. we got caught in the rain just at the end there, so we bailed. Not before though. I put a load of citronella, the last of it, I need to order some more, just scattered what was left in the bottle of the citronella around inside the polytunnel. So hopefully, because they're not coming up from underneath, they're going to be put off by that smell. I put a lot of it along like the wooden bit at the door. It's not a doorstep. That makes it sound very fancy, but you know what I mean, like the little bit of wood at the front there. So hopefully that's going to put them off, because although now there's very little that they can actually like take fruit wise in there, if they start digging, they're going to turf up all of those things that I've just planted. So hopefully the citronella keeps them away. Also found my mic, came home, and it had been retrieved from the back of a newly populated kitchen cabinet. So yeah, we're back to sound quality. So yeah, cheers chaps. Another week has flown by. Something I realised I forgot to show you actually before we left was the hedge that's at the neighbour's plot, which is the one that's made out of that Winter Savory. Because she's kept it like trimmed really nicely for years, it's got a really lovely dense. It's only about, what, a foot and a bit high. It's not like a massive hedge, but it's beautiful. So I must remember to film that for you next week, because that's worth a look. Such a great herb. And actually I was thinking, I've taken all those different cuttings. If they all root, I might be able to get some sort of like little hedge going myself at the back of where the polytunnel meets the honeysuckle. That would be nice. Got so many plans of things like, take a sip of wine, Jessie. Don't just talk into your glass like this. So many things. So it's been such a washout summer, but like the excitement's ramped up now for all the stuff that we can do over winter. And that's actually quite a lot of things. I said earlier about the chicken cage. That's going to have a bit of a shifty. What else have we got to do? Obviously, I've got to carry on making the roundy beds. I had a real hard time getting the clips to actually attach them to the bed. That second lot that I bought, because the first two that I made, I had ones that we'd left over in the shed from years ago, so they were all a bit mismatched, but they were pretty solid. And then the next lot I bought like a job lot, huge bag of them from Screwfix. They are so flimsy that when you go to push the pipe in, if you get it just slightly off, you just crush them. So they're completely useless. So although I can make up cages at the moment, the most important feature of those cages is how they're attached to the bed, so that nothing can kind of get up underneath them. And that is the bit that I can't find the clips for. So I've bought a whole load of like two packs. I've bought a whole load of like twin packs of those clips from all different places, and I'm going to test them out and see which ones are strong, because the ones from Screwfix and Toolstation are useless. I think that's about it, chaps. I will link the video of the field beans underneath, so that will be in the the notes underneath. I'll also put a link to where I bought that massive box of field beans. Just in case you feel like doing your entire allotment with field beans over winter. I haven't laid the tomatoes out yet. That's going to be a job for early next week. I've got to find somewhere to store them while they try and ripen up. I mean, I could do it in here, but in here is a tad busy at the moment. Every time we don't have anywhere to put anything in the house, it comes into my office, it seems, at the moment. So we're kind of piled high, and I want to have them spread somewhere really nice and open, because I've previously tried and they've been too close together, and then one's kind of started rotting, and then that spreads to everything else, and then you lose a load of them without even realising that it's happening. So I've got to find a nice bit of open space. What would be perfect is obviously like a sunny window ledge. Not only do we not have any free window ledges, but there is no sun to do the sunny part of it. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them yet, but hopefully we've still got some tomatoes in store and it's not all over. It's not all over. So that, chaps, I think is about it for this week. As always, it's a huge thank you to the people who support this channel in lots of different ways, but mainly my Patreons, who are the people whose names you see at the end of this vlog. But it's also to everybody who comments, leaves a thumbs up, and just watches the video week in, week out, because it all matters and I really appreciate it. So cheers, chaps. I'll see you next week. Oh, it's supposed to get to like 20 degrees next week. No sunshine. but 20 degrees. So we'll see if that happens.